To like and subscribe to us at the bottom of your screen. And good evening. From Hamlet, North Carolina, I'm Joe LaRosie. Kharg Island, often referred to as the orphan pearl of the Persian Gulf, is a small coral outcropping that serves as the singular most important node in Iran's sovereign existence. Located approximately 25 miles off the Iranian coast, it is the terminal through which roughly 90% to 95% of Iran's crude oil flows. On March 13th and 14th, U.S. forces conducted a series of surgical strikes on the island, while primary headlines focused on the obliteration of military targets. The true significance of the attack lies in what was not hit, the loading jetties and storage tanks. This analysis explores why these strikes are a turning point in the conflict, the devastating economic shadow they cast over Tehran, and how they fit into the U.S. endgame in the region. The significance of the Kharg Island strikes is rooted in three distinct categories. First, tactical necessity. Second, psychological warfare. And third, the immediate catalyst for the strike. It was Iran's attempt to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. Kharg Island is not just an oil hub. It is a fortified military outpost. The U.S. strikes targeted coastal missile batteries, removing the immediate threat to U.S. naval assets, and commercial tankers, drone and speedboat facilities. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps uses Kharg as a base for swarm tactics, mine storage by destroying the caches of naval mines on the island. The U.S. effectively blinded Iran's ability to reseed the Strait of Hormuz after minesweeping operations. President Donald Trump's administration characterized the strikes as a final warning by hitting the military installations adjacent to the oil terminals. The U.S. demonstrated that it possesses the precision to decapitate Iran's economy without yet doing so. This creates a sword of Damocles effect. Tehran now knows that their primary source of survival is at the mercy of a single order. For decades, Kharg Island was considered off limits because of the global oil shock that would follow its destruction. By striking the island, the U.S. has signaled that the Kharg taboo is over. The significance here is the normalization of kinetic action against Iran's most sensitive geographic point. While the oil infrastructure remains physically intact, the economic impact of the strikes has been significant. Iran's economy is a petrostate in the most literal sense. Even before the strikes, sanctions had limited their exports, but Kharg remained the valve through which 1.5 million barrels per day reached Asian markets, primarily China. Insurance rates for tankers willing to dock at Kharg have skyrocketed to the point of being prohibitive. The ghost fleet that helps Iran bypass sanctions relies on low-profile operations. A high-intensity combat zone at the loading terminal makes these operations impossible. If the U.S. proceeds to wipe out the infrastructure as threatened, the impact is not just a temporary loss of cash flow. Kharg's deepwater jetties are unique. Most of Iran's other coastal areas are too shallow for very large crude carriers. Experts estimate that replacing the T-jetties and Sea Island terminals would take 3 to 5 years under ideal conditions, longer under a blockade. Once China and other buyers find alternative sources, that is, increased OPEC in production or U.S. shale, Iran may never regain its hold on oil revenue. The Iranian government cannot fund its domestic obligations without that oil, and they control large swaths of the economy relying on oil. Bounties to maintain loyalty. The strikes on Kharg hit the IRGC's wallet directly, potentially sparking internal rifts between the regular military and the ideological guards. In the context of the 2026 conflict, winning is defined by the U.S. as the permanent neutralization of Iran's ability to project power and the cessation of its nuclear program. Kharg Island is the key to this objective for several reasons. Iran's traditional strategy is to threaten global energy markets to deter U.S. intervention. By securing Kharg and demonstrating a willingness to escort tankers, the U.S. is calling Iran's bluff. If the U.S. controls the on-off switch of Iran's oil, Iran loses its only significant counter leverage against Western pressure. A regime that cannot pay its soldiers or provide basic subsidies for its population is a fragile one. The U.S. strategy appears to be a strangulation of the central government's resources. By hitting Kharg, the U.S. accelerates the timeline of economic collapse, hoping to force a diplomatic surrender or facilitate internal political change. The U.S. objective is to maintain the free and safe passage of the Strait of Hormuz. Kharg Island was the primary base for those interfering with that. Neutralizing the island's military capacity allows the U.S. Navy to operate with fewer risks, ensuring that even if Iranian oil stops, the rest of the world's 20 million barrels per day can still get through. By sparing the oil infrastructure, the U.S. keeps a prize on the table. In any future negotiation, the restoration of Kharg Island's security and export capacity becomes the ultimate carrot. The U.S. is not just winning the war. It is designing the terms of the peace by holding the Iranian economy hostage in a state of functional suspension. The Kharg Island strikes of March 2026 are more than a military engagement. They are an economic ultimatum. The U.S. has successfully removed the defensive shield protecting Iran's oil. Tehran now faces a binary choice: de-escalate and negotiate, or watch as the orphan pearl is truly obliterated, taking the remnants of the Iranian economy with it. The strategic victory for the U.S. lies in this newfound clarity. For the first time in the history of the Islamic Republic, its primary source of strength has become its most undeniable and undefended weakness. That's the way it is. This Saturday, March 14th, 2026, I'm Joe LaRosie.